Hello and good evening, everyone. We are going to get started very soon. Glad you're joining us this evening. Okay, so everyone, we have actually almost everyone here. So this is great. It's great to have you join us this evening. My name is Peaches Valdez. I am the Dean of Admission here at Hamilton, and I am excited to welcome you all and also to congratulate you on your admission to Hamilton as members of the class of 2026, and more importantly, as members of our JAM community. We are definitely excited to have you all here. We know that some of you have already accepted our offer and are going to be joining us in spring of 2023, but I know that some of you are still making your decisions as to what your next steps are going to be. So I am going to be your MC for this evening, and I am lucky to be joined by 4 members of our community. They're going to share some of their insight into the Hamilton community, the experience, and especially their perspectives from the January admission experience. So I want to thank you in advance for all of your questions that you've submitted during your registration. And definitely we're going to have questions as well for our panelists. And of course, if you are inspired by the conversation and you have a question to ask, please put that in the Q&A and we will answer as many as we can. And of course, you are more than welcome to reach out to us after this event with your questions directly, and we are more than happy to answer those, and we'll share our contact information at the end of this evening's event. So just to get us started, I'm joined this evening by my colleague, Nikki Barron, who is our January admission coordinator, Tessa Chifalo, who is our Assistant Dean of Students for Student Engagement, and we also have Jacqueline Cleary and Thomas Kuhn, who are members of our Hamilton student community and also former JAMs. And so I have also my colleague, Anna Weiss, who is behind the scenes right now, who is managing the Q&A and will be answering questions that way as well. So as we get started, I want to have Jacqueline and Thomas, if you can do just a little bit of introductions about yourself. Of course, they know your name, what year you are, where you're from, major, minor, special concentrations and specialties, how you spent your first fall semester, and some of the activities that you're involved in on campus. So Jacqueline, you want to go first?
Sure. So my name's Jacqueline. I'm a junior here. I'm from Windsor, Connecticut. I'm a sociology major, and then I'm double minoring in Hispanic studies and government. And I did the London program my fall. And then on campus, I am a tour guide. I'm an orientation leader for both the fall and the Jan admits. And then I am also a captain of club soccer. So a little bit what I do here.
Perfect. And how about you, Thomas?
Awesome. My name's Thomas Kuhn. I'm from Yarmouth, Maine. I'm a sophomore. I just declared recently as a gov major, and I'm planning on minoring in environmental studies and philosophy. I spent my first fall semester working on a political campaign in Maine and nannying for a family and taking college classes at a local community college. And I'm involved with the Hamilton Democrats Club. I'm a member of the e-board. I'm on Hamilton Men's Club Soccer, and I'm a tutor for the Homework Club.
Great, perfect. Tessa, how about you? Can you, your role here on campus, which is extensive, and when you joined, how long have you been here at Hamilton? What do you enjoy about the work? And a little bit about your partnership with the admission office.
Absolutely. So I am Tessa Chifalo. I'm the Assistant Dean of Students for Student Engagement. And one of my primary roles at Hamilton is to work with first-year students. So all of our students who are new to the college and their first year at the college. I oversee our orientation programs, both in August and January. I also run one branch of our orientation adventure trips. So Exploration Adventure is the one I run. I also do a lot with transition communication, run a programming series for first year students during the year. And then I also work very closely with our student activities office. So a little bit all over the place. So I really love this role, and especially the first year student piece, because I just enjoy supporting students in the transition process. I find it to be kind of a really exciting and kind of charged process for everybody. You know, there's a lot of questions, a lot of energy, a lot of excitement about new things that are going to happen and just that fresh start. And I really enjoy that. And I also just really love answering questions, which is maybe a weird feature, but just something that I love to do, especially answering questions about Hamilton. But I also really love working with our January admission students because you all, including our 2 students who are here today, bring really rich experiences and perspectives to campus. And certainly the things that our JANs do in the fall semester are so unique, right? To start your college experience somewhere different, kind of whether it's guiding your own experience or going to London or participating in another program. And I know we'll get to that later. But that's very adventurous. And I think it means that our JANs, when they come to campus, bring this really cool experience and perspective that they can share with the community. And so that's a really fun aspect of the job for me. And I love working with our leaders too, both in August and January. In terms of my work with the admissions office, because my role is all about first-year students, we really kind of have a lot to do in the spring and summer and fall as students are in that transition process, right? So after you have completed your, application and acceptance process and chosen Hamilton, you will start to hear a lot from me to talk about what's coming up, resources, orientation, and things like that. And so we work in pretty close partnership to support new students who are coming into the college and make sure it's kind of a seamless transition in terms of information and communication.
Perfect. Thank you, Tessa. Thank you, Thomas and Jacqueline. And Nikki, I think it was, Tessa's response kind of about her engagement with the JAN community. Once they come to campus, she gave a little bit insight into that and what she's enjoyed about having that relationship with them and learning from their experiences. How about you? Can you talk a little bit about your particular role within the JAN community as well?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It is so exciting to see all of you here this evening. I'm sorry we can't see your faces, but we can certainly see your names. Many of your names I recognize because I've already been in touch with you. And that's something that I really enjoy in terms of the role that I have in the JAN program. I'm Nikki Barron. I am a proud alum. I graduated from Hamilton in 2002. I could probably chat all day about Hamilton. I love to share Hamilton with prospective students. I'm an associate dean of admission, and I have been working specifically on the JAN admission program. This is my 3rd year working on the JAN admission program. And it's just really exciting to get to answer all of your questions about what it means to be admitted to Hamilton as a JAN. This is a really exciting opportunity for all of you. We identify certain qualities in your application that identify you as someone who's going to be a really good fit for this program. We are very intentional in the students that we select for the JAN admission program, and it truly is an exciting part about my role in the admission office at Hamilton. It's exciting also to help guide you as you're starting to explore and think about different fall experiences. Certainly you can hear more from Jacqueline and Thomas this evening about how they spent their fall before Hamilton. But I think it's really exciting that you get to do anything that you've always wanted to do, but had never before had such a large amount of time to be able to pursue that experience in the fall semester before you come into Hamilton.
Mm-hmm. Great. And Nikki, in the end, on average, how many JANs are we bringing in a January term?
Typically, it's around 40. We're aiming for the class of 2026 to have 40 JANs. So it is a pretty significant number of the first year class, but in a lot of ways, the JANs form a sense of a cohort within the first year class. They are having a really similar start to their college experience by starting college midway through an academic year. And so there's a lot of community, there's a lot of camaraderie that builds because of that shared experience of starting college halfway through the academic year. Tessa does a great job at connecting with JANs in the fall before they arrive to Hamilton. So there's a lot of support for JANs before they even arrive to campus, starting with now when you're admitted, but also working with you in the months ahead before you actually arrive to Hamilton in January of 2023.
Great, thank you. So Jacqueline and Thomas, our students here this evening just recently learned about their January admission to Hamilton, and they may have some initial questions and reactions to it. And Nikki may have, as Nikki said, she's probably talked to a number of them already. So can you actually do a little rewind and talk a little bit about your reaction when you first thought you were admitted as a January admitted student? And what did you learn about, what did you do to learn more about this particular admission?
Yeah, so for me, and I'm sure this is a common experience, I was a little confused. Talking to my other Jan friends, that's definitely a reaction many of us had. So after that initial confusion, um, being able to learn about Jans like in the current Hamilton community, I guess what we're doing now, talking to older Jans, and how they manage not only their first semester, but coming back to Hamilton or coming to Hamilton was really important for me. So I was able to go to the accepted students day and also meet other accepted Jans. That was really important, and being able to go to those panels and seeing students active in the Hamilton community, and all of that they had learned from their first semester was definitely comforting to me.
Great, thank you. Thomas?
I was a little bit surprised, but I was also super excited. One of my sister's best friends actually was a Jan here, Ella Antolini. She graduated in 2020.
Yeah.
And I actually called her that night and we just talked about the experience. She told me all about Arcadia. This was 2020, so COVID kind of altered that perception pretty quickly after, but I got super excited for the possibility to go to London or get to have a semester where I can kind of control what I do.
Mhm. Great, perfect. And we're actually going to talk, we're going to definitely go into a little bit more about what each of you did. And then, Nikki, I know that I definitely want you to talk a little bit about some of the programs that our students have taken advantage of, some of our more formal partnerships, and how they've tried to navigate that during COVID, because I know that we've had a couple of questions about that as well. So Thomas, you in your introduction, you had done a variety of things. You took some classes, you were a nanny, you were working on political campaigns, how'd that work? Like, what made you decide, you initially thought of Arcadia and the London program, but, COVID was a little, wrench in that plan in some ways, but you chose to stay here in the States, and you have such a diversity of commitment. So how did you narrow that down? What type of research did you do?
I looked a lot at I communicated a lot with the registrar's office about transferring in credits once I realized that it probably wasn't the best idea for me to go to London in the middle of a pandemic. My dad has some medical issues, so I wanted to be able to be close to home in case if something went wrong. And I'd worked on Angus King's campaign in 2018, and there was a big community of us that were planning on working on Gideon's campaign. And I was lucky enough to have the semester off. So I was able to spend an extra 2.5 months working on that campaign. Fortunately, the result did not go in our favor, but it was still an excellent experience, and I needed money. So I figured that it'd be a good idea to try and find a job that was COVID safe. And I found a family that was very, very safe and responsible during that time period. And it was a perfect fit. And I looked at classes at the University of Southern Maine because it was pretty close to home and I could communicate with professors very easily. And I found a bunch of really interesting classes that transferred into Hamilton credits.
And then Thomas, the courses, did you take those on campus, or or were they virtual classes?
I took those online. They were offered as actually a hybrid, but I just wanted to reduce my exposure.
Right, exactly. And so Jacqueline, you did the Arcadia program in London. And so that was pre-COVID. That was, yes. So how was that experience? How did you vet that program? Were you looking to travel abroad from the beginning, or was it just kind of a good fit in some ways?
Yeah, so I did the Arcadia program, which is, I guess, the most traditional route you can take. Not that being a Jan is that traditional, but I was looking specifically to make sure I was meeting and connecting with other Hamilton students. That was really important to me. So the fact that Arcadia was where a majority of the students would go, that was something that I knew would help me, I think, personally in the long run. It was also really nice that not only did our credits transfer, but we actually got a writing intensive credit that counted over in Arcadia. So that made sort of the whole thought of credit, non-credit, that wasn't really a worry for me. I knew that was going to work out. So that was really important. And the fact that I just got to do something completely new and completely different was definitely something that I knew I sort of needed, because I came from a small school that I had gone to, been surrounded by the community my whole life. So I knew before I went to another smaller school with a great close community, I wanted to do something completely different and go to a big city where I had never been before.
Great, perfect. Nikki and Tessa, since you're seeing our Jans from two different sides, Nikki, you're seeing that as part of the planning process, and they're kind of vetting them through you in some ways, and Tessa, you're meeting them, through this process that they're here on campus, and they're you grow this really strong relationship with them because you're working so closely with them. Can you talk maybe a little about some of those experiences that of Jans that Jans have taken advantage of? Maybe it wasn't Arcadia, maybe it wasn't it wasn't through semester at C semester or School for Field Studies. What other ones that did you hear about that other students were doing that kind of kept them closer to home here, or kept them on the mainland in many ways?
Do you want to go first, Nikki, or do you want me to?
So I think Jans really do a variety of things. And I think especially during the pandemic, Jans have been more scattered during their fall experiences than they have in other traditional years. So it means that Jans are having even more different experiences, and they all come together and get to talk about how they spent the fall. It becomes a really common topic of conversation once they then arrive to Hamilton. So we have 3 partnership programs. We are partners with the program that Jacqueline did, Arcadia's program in London. We're also partnered with C semester, that's SEA semester, and we're also partnered with the School for Field Studies. So we, in this year's first year class of Jans, so in the Jans that are in the class of 2025, who are in their very first semester on campus right now, we had Jans do all 3 of those partner programs in the fall. We also have Jans who are doing different things, whether that is doing a different travel program. We've had Jans who are doing travel programs domestically. We've had other Jans who are doing more international travel programs. Those other programs are probably not going to be for credit, but that's what's so exciting about the fall experience, is that each Jan gets to choose the fall experience that they feel will be the best fit for them and how they want to spend their time before coming to Hamilton. If you choose the non-credit option, meaning that you're having a fall experience not earning academic credit, you come to Hamilton and you can work on making up those credits during your 3.5 years in a variety of ways. Jans are still graduating on time, even if they're pursuing a non-credit option in the fall. You can make up credits through perhaps AP credits. If you've taken advanced placement tests, you might be eligible for AP credit by taking an extra Hamilton class. The typical course load here is 4 classes per semester. You might choose to take 5 classes in a semester, or you might choose to take college classes on another college or university campus during the summer and then transfer those credits to Hamilton. So there are a variety of ways that you can make up the credit if you choose a non-credit option. We also have Jans who, like Thomas, do internships or have jobs in the fall and save some money, and in that process strengthen relationships with their families by staying home in the fall before coming to Hamilton. So there really is a variety of options. I'm happy to answer other questions if after this evening each admitted Jan would like to be in touch with questions about other ideas of ways to spend the fall, but those are just some ways that our Jans in previous years have spent the fall.
Yeah, to add on to that, I have known students in the past, so I've been at Hamilton for 8 years. I have seen students do gap year programs with Where There Be Dragons, which is really cool, going to Nepal and kind of hiking and exploring the community there. I've seen students do community service work in different parts of the country or close to home. We had a student a few years ago who took this semester to work on their novel that they were working on, right? A lot of other students pursue passion projects, like whether it's music or another hobby that they're really interested, or something they just felt like they didn't have that amount of dedicated time to focus on without other distractions. That's pretty common as well. Certainly some students take community college courses, and I think in some cases the credit can transfer back. It certainly kind of depends on the individual circumstance. We've had students who've done NOLs, so leading hiking excursions or outdoor wilderness experiences for the whole semester. So there's a pretty wide variety of options out there. And I think students really just find something that's the right fit for them, whether that is, like Jacqueline said, wanting to spend more time getting to know other members of the JAN cohort, or pursuing a passion, or just doing something they never had the opportunity to do. And we might be getting to this later, but I wanted to add on to Nikki's discussion about pursuing credit, that our college registrar's office, who maintains the course catalog, is really fantastic about helping students navigate whether or not you can obtain credit for a course or any coursework that's completed somewhere other than Hamilton. And so if you're looking to receive credit, but not necessarily interested in the partner program, I really encourage that you reach out as early as possible. The sooner the better, before you're in a course. You can start with Nikki, of course, or start with me, if it's later down the road, but we can connect you with the right people so you can kind of sort that out on an individual basis and make sure that you at least know going into the fall whether you're going to get credit or whether the coursework you're going to complete isn't going to be for Hamilton credit.
And actually, for both you and Nikki, that's actually a really great transition, because that was my next question about classes. Because we always, we do have students who always ask us, and they're a little bit concerned, like, if I do a fall semester of a non-credit program, am I going to graduate on time? Am I going to get the credits, and how do I do that? Am I going to be overwhelmed once I get to Hamilton? And what are the opportunities to take classes? And so Thomas, you talked a little bit, you work directly with the registrar and in your process of vetting the courses. And so, in connection to Tessa's question, statement, like, starting early, like, when did you start having these conversations with the registrar? And then what can you, how many classes do you actually take, and what types of classes were they?
I think I reached out when my sister was actually registering for summer classes. I think I reached out in May. Oh, that's a really good idea. I need to keep up on the credits, so I'll give a shout out to my sister there. And the courses I took at USM were pretty interesting and pretty timely. I took a course on electoral integrity, and I took a course on the history of race and sports. And I knew that I had an AP credit because I had a score that qualified for credit at Hamilton. I still need to take that history class to obtain that credit. But I know that if I take a US history class at any point here and get above a C, I am caught up essentially. And what was the other part of the question? I'm sorry.
Oh, you actually answered it. It was about, like, having communications with the registrar.
Oh yeah.
And what kind of, and what classes. So are you, since you've kind of mapped that out, are you going to have to, double or triple the courses that you're taking in order to graduate on time?
I'm planning on actually taking a course this summer in DC with, I'm hoping to get an internship with Senator King, and I'm planning on reaching out to George Washington and seeing if I can enroll in a summer class there to finally just get all caught up. Yeah.
Great. Perfect. One thing to note is that as part of the, we'll talk a little bit about this when Tessa goes over the orientation process, but we actually have an opportunity for all the JANs as a group to come together. And we have current JANs, we have former JANs, and we have key people in the community who actually work with JANs throughout their time away. And one of them is members of the registrar. And so Ann Riffle, we can also share her information with you. She's a great resource. She works individually, nonstop with students, making sure that they feel very informed of what they need in order to feel comfortable about entering their fall semester on their excursions, their adventures, knowing that they are going to have this connection throughout that. So, and she's an amazing resource on campus, just as Nikki and Tessa are as well. So one question, another question was, Jacqueline, you talked about you were able to connect with other Hamilton students during your fall semester experience. And so you had this kind of built-in cohort as part of that. And so, I think we know through those partner programs, you'll have a connection with students. And so how did that work? Did you all travel together? Did you coordinate your travel to London together? Or was it you ended up in London, you were at your residence hall, and that's how you met?
A little of both. So there are people that coordinated their flights if they lived. So like a bunch of Boston people coordinated their flights, a bunch of New York people coordinated their flights. But mostly we were given a time to meet at the London airport, Heathrow. And we were also meeting with the big Arcadia group, which includes other schools. So specifically Brandeis is one of the other bigger programs there. And then we were taken on a bus to the dorm in London, where we then we were given our rooming assignments a few weeks prior. And if you had, some people had singles, if you had a roommate, it was with a Hamilton student. And then most of us ended up living in the same like flat sort of area of 4 rooms that then shared a kitchen and common space. So there are a couple of those areas in the dorm, and those were sort of divided by school. And that was a great way to just immediately bond. I mean, cooking meals together, that's how you get close to people. And so we were then we did a bunch of orientation things, getting to know the city, also getting to know each other while we were there. And then we were able to, some people took classes with, I believe it was King's College, correct me if I'm wrong there, but with another school in London that wasn't Arcadia. And so they were able to branch out and meet more like local students. And most of the classes we took were with each other. We were commuting together, living together. It was a great way to sort of get to know one another naturally.
Mm-hmm. And Thomas, since you didn't do one of the kind of cohort programs, how did you connect with Hamilton students, other Jans, or did you have an opportunity to do that?
I did not in person, but I definitely got in contact with a few of my other fellow Jans via Snapchat or Instagram or even Facebook, which is kind of outdated in our generation. But yeah, I definitely had the opportunity to kind of establish a few familiar faces and even make a couple of friends before I got here, which was super helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I know we know that Facebook is dated. Just so you know, though, there is a Facebook group for the class, and then we all are very much aware that you build out groups through other platforms. So that's totally fine, but it's actually a really nice, great opportunity and space for you to all meet virtually in one space, and then and break out into other groups elsewhere. So definitely, in regards to your experiences for both of you, can you say one of the best things that you took away from your experience during that fall semester? Maybe something you learned about yourself, or something you were really like excited, a skill set that you brought to Hamilton once you came to campus, or just it was an amazing experience, anything you took away from that?
Yeah, something that I don't think I realized, but my mom definitely commented on it when I came back, and now that I've had a few years out, I've noticed, but I gained a lot of independence and confidence. Like I was very comfortable with trusting myself and navigating around the city, around new people. And I think that wouldn't have necessarily happened my first year if I was in Clinton, because I'd be in this, on the hill in this small environment. When I was abroad, you have to, I got pickpocketed one of the first days I was there. And so I had to deal with that with a bunch of strangers I didn't know, that then quickly became my friends. That's a good bonding experience there. But then sort of I was able to be self-sufficient. And I think that really prepared me, especially I'm thinking like post-college, definitely prepared me for my future in that regard.
Great.
I would say time management, dealing with a little kid that you're nannying, college classes, and the responsibilities of being an intern on a campaign was a lot, and it's definitely helped me succeed here at Hamilton. I was kind of disorganized before arriving, and now I have everything really mapped out. I have a planner, I have a whiteboard where I have everything that I need to get done and my responsibilities on. And I don't think I was ready to actually come here and succeed. But having that semester and being able to kind of improve my ability to stay organized has really helped.
Great, perfect. You both bring up some really great skill sets that I think definitely kind of being immersed in those opportunities is may not be enjoyable while you're doing it, but it's definitely something you'll reflect on and say, that was definitely a transformational experience. So now I'm going to actually transition to the next part is just about the orientation and transition to Hamilton. And so Nikki and Tessa, I wanted you to kind of address this. So Nikki, specifically for you, how do we as the admission office stay connected with JANS during the fall?
Yes, so we are in touch with JANS so all JANS who are admitted to Hamilton have until May 1st to submit their enrollment deposit. So we are still, some of you who are here this evening have already joined the class. That's super exciting and we can't wait to see you. Others of you are still deciding, and we will release another group of decisions to admit JANS in regular decision, which we are currently in the process of sorting through. So we won't know who the JANS are until May 1st or soon after that. And so soon after that, typically toward the end of May, early June, we will get in touch with all of our enrolled JANS. And that process will involve collecting your fall plans. So we're curious to know how you are spending the fall. We ask you to let us know what you are doing during the fall. And that is just so that we can keep track of you, so that we can easily keep in touch with you. The admission office shares that information with Tessa and some of our other campus partners, just so that we can make sure that we're supporting you while you're away, while you're pursuing your fall experience and before you arrive to Hamilton. Also, part of that will involve asking students who are enrolling at Hamilton and also their parents or their guardians to sign what we call the January enrollment agreement. And that enrollment agreement makes sure that you are agreeing that you will arrive to Hamilton in January in the same standing that you were admitted to Hamilton with, meaning that you're going to enjoy a productive fall. We ask that if you're pursuing academic work, that you earn no less than a B-. And so you'll get more information. These details will be coming to you in the early part of summer, in May or June, and we'll ask you again to let us know what your fall plans will be. I saw one of you submitted a question in the Q&A asking if you will know what your JANS are doing in the fall. Unfortunately, that's not information that we're able to share with JANS because of privacy concerns, but also because JANS are still figuring out what their plans are. And we're not going to know how JANS have chosen to spend the fall until midsummer. So really it's up to each JAN to make the decision to choose how to spend the fall based on the experience that they feel is the best fit for them. Again, we're happy to guide you in that process. We're happy to direct you to some resources as you're making that decision. But unfortunately, that's not information that we're able to share with JANS. But as Peach has mentioned, JANS connect in the first year class Facebook page, and then often will branch out and form other networks. And so maybe you're going to form some friends through those virtual platforms, and maybe that's how you can share information and learn about what some of your other JANS have chosen to pursue. But that's just not information that the admission office will share with the JAN cohort.
Great. Thank you so much, Nikki. So in regards to Tessa, can you talk about your engagement with JANS, throughout the fall? And I guess starting with we've talked a little bit about the pre-arrival orientation that happens in August. And then if you could talk a little bit about, the adventures that they're doing, the orientation, I think, and Jacqueline had mentioned that she was an orientation leader, talk about mentors and things like that, just helping students transition from the summer into their fall and your communication engagement with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, when you transition from being an accepted student to a deposited student, if that's the choice you make, you're pretty quickly going to start hearing from me, right? You're transitioning into being a formal Hamilton student. And one of the first points of contact will be in May, shortly after the deposit deadline, to invite all of our January admission students on an orientation adventure trip. I'm going to talk about those in a little bit more depth in a minute, but first I want to talk about some of the other ways you'll hear from us and get connected in the summer and fall. So there'll be those emails. You'll be invited to participate in an orientation trip. I strongly encourage it, not just because I oversee the program, but because I think it's a really powerful experience, and I'll explain why. And I'm sure Jacqueline can talk about it too as a leader of some of these trips. But in the summer and in the fall, we also offer a mentor program for our JANs. So that's opt-in, but if you want to, I send out a sign up. You can tell me a little bit about your interests, what you're doing in the fall, the types of things you're interested in getting out of a mentor experience. And then I will match you with a current JAN student. In most cases, they are from the year, just 1 year older than you, right? So our class of 2025 JANs would act as mentors for our incoming class of 2026 JANs. And they are a great resource just to help answer questions, right? Like, what should I pack? Or how did you get connected on campus? Or what were the academics like as a JAN? And in some cases, I will match you with a JAN who is doing something similar to what you did or what you will do in the fall, if that's of interest, right? So they can kind of help you navigate that process and just share what they learned from their own experience. So the mentor program is one option. And I know student to student communication about the student experience at Hamilton is probably one of the most crucial parts of the transition. So I always encourage people to take advantage of that too, if that's of interest to you. You'll hear from me also in the fall about our new student checklist. So we have a few things that we do virtually to help all of our new students prepare for their first semester at Hamilton. And this is true for students who arrive in the fall and students who arrive in the spring and January. And so it kind of walks you through some resources at Hamilton, helps you to make your course selections for your first semester on campus. And there's a lot of other information in there that'll just kind of be your on-ramp to coming to campus. So we have a lot of back and forth communication about that. And then there's sometimes some JAN social media, not run by me, but run by your fellow students, and a JAN committee. So we have a really robust JAN community on campus. And in fact, in the 8 years I've been at Hamilton, it has grown into something really like wonderful, I think, and really it's student driven. And it's a just really welcoming and positive environment, certainly from all the interactions I've had. And so there are some ways to get involved with your fellow JAN students if that's of interest to you, both in your own class and in some of the classes above you. And that's some of that opportunity can start even before you come to campus. I know some of our on social media, there have even been some like day in the life, right? What's it like at London, at the London program, or what's it like on some of these other programs if they have Wi-Fi access where they can do an Instagram takeover. So those are some options. And then in the spring semester, when you arrive on campus, in addition to the opportunity to come to August's orientation, all JANs will come back and do a January orientation program. Again, a great opportunity to meet your fellow JANs, but also some upper class leaders. So Jacqueline and Thomas have both been January orientation leaders, and really are just so well positioned to kind of say, like, here's what it's like to come to campus in the middle of the year and often in the cold. There's always some snow. And so it's a lot of fun. Actually, they put on some wonderful social events, and it's just a chance to kind of get a lay of the land and navigate campus before our returning students come back to campus. So we always make sure you've got a little bit of lead time there. And then throughout your first semester on campus, there are JAN committee events, often like events specifically within the JAN community, but then a lot of other events where you can meet other first year students, get involved in clubs and organizations on campus. The first year experience program that I run hosts events specifically designed for new students. And it's very active. You know, students who come in both semesters are very engaged. So whether you want to get off campus for a small group outing or come to one of our de-stress tables or just sit around and do an activity with students and get to know them, those are all options. I think I covered most of the basics.
Yeah, I'm just checking off, making sure. Yes, absolutely. Yes, definitely. So, and you talked a little bit about the orientation program, and I think, can you actually go into maybe a little bit more detail how the August one maybe slightly differ from the January one?
Yep, Absolutely. So as I mentioned, the first thing that most students will hear from me in May is an invitation to participate in our August orientation. While August orientation is required for students who are coming to campus in the fall, it is optional for our JANs, but strongly encouraged. And in a typical year, I would say we have about 90% participation, right? Most folks who don't participate, it's because they've committed to another activity. But all JANs are invited to participate in the first half of August orientation, which is our orientation adventure trips. They are small group trips, so there's about between 5 and 10 new students on each trip, led by 2 student leaders. They fall into 3 branches of trips. So some of our trips are in the Adirondack Adventure branch are wilderness-based, so things like canoeing, hiking, kayaking. Another branch of trip is exploration adventure. Those are all topical, so they really run the gamut, right? We've had a beekeeping trip in the past. We have a lot of trips focused on the arts, music production, journalism, history of New York State. We have a really fun one that I love that's photography and cheese. And so you do a cheese trail around the Finger Lakes while taking photographs. There's opportunities to do an editing workshop. And then our third branch of trips is outreach adventure. And those are community service-based trips, many of which take place nearby in the local Utica community. Jacqueline is an outreach adventure leader and has been for a couple years, right? 2 years? Yeah. And so we run every August 64 or so small group trips all at the same time. They last about 4 days. And so if JANs want to, they can come on those trips, and you would have the option, just like the rest of the class, to indicate your interest, right? So you'll get this list of 64 trips. You'll tell us what types of things you want to do, and then we will place students according to interest. And so it's a great chance to meet other students in the class. I might let Jacqueline talk about some of the relationships that often come out of the orientation trips in general. But coming to orientation in August for JANs isn't just that. So you would come for the trip, but we also add on some programming specific to JANs. So the day you arrive on campus, we do a big program. It usually includes Nikki and Peaches and I, and a lot of students too. Many of our orientation trip leaders are also JANs. I feel like more than the percentage of JANs that we have on campus are actually represented in our orientation trip leader population. So we do a big session. We'll often answer some commonly asked questions. It's a chance to meet people in person, also a chance for parents to come and meet other JAN families in person. And then, so that's kind of the arrival day before you head off on your trip. Of course, you can participate in all the other welcome programming too, right, that all of our new students are participating in. And then at the end of the trip, you come back, we have a big banquet all together, and the day that JANs depart campus, we also offer some morning programming. So the first of those programs is a session that's co-hosted by our Associate Dean of Students for Academics, and Ann Riffle, who we've mentioned a few times from the Registrar's Office, and they answer a lot of questions about the academic transition to Hamilton and transferring credits and a lot of things like that. And then the other session is actually just a brunch. So it's another chance to kind of close the loop and engage with JAN families and kind of make some of those plans, right? If you want to book flights together, or you want to get together mid-semester, or there's something else that you're really interested in doing, it's another chance to come together and, you know, enjoy a light breakfast and meet some other families.
Great, perfect. So we've covered a lot about the orientation part. And so I guess, Jacqueline, you did orientation, and then Thomas, did you do orientation as well?
I had JAN orientation, but during 2020, there was no regular orientation. It got canceled midway through the summer, and I remember being super disappointed. I've never gotten to have that experience, unfortunately.
Yeah, we didn't do trips that year, unfortunately.
Right. Yes, yes. So I guess, as part of that, so Jacqueline, you were able to participate in that. Was it hard to leave? Like, you had done your trip, and you'd been part of this small group that went off and did. I don't know which one you did. Which was it, the exploratory one, or did you do the outreach?
I did some community service. Yeah,
community service.
Outreach.
So how was that afterwards? Did you the rest of your groups possibly stayed on campus and you left? How was that feeling, and how did you stay in connection with them afterwards?
Yeah, so I had an amazing orientation experience. I think what was really helpful was like my trip itself, but I met a lot of the other Jans. So yes, I was definitely sad to leave and sad to leave my group, but I knew I was about to go see, 30 of my new friends a week later in London. So that definitely made arriving to London a lot easier. It made leaving Hamilton a lot easier. But overall, the orientation was great because I got to get a little comfortable with the campus, and the way the trips are designed, like you get really close with those 7 other people in your group and your 2 leaders. One of my leaders was a Jan, and that was really helpful to me because I got to see him, like how he functioned in the Hamilton community. It was really great for me to see, like, okay, he's doing XYZ. He made friends that aren't Jans, like he, and he was able to talk to me. This is something cool to do in London, things like that. That was really helpful for me. And then being able to, like text my group throughout the semester. When I came back, we all had dinner together. Most trips will do like a little reunion with their Jans. And so it's a really, really great opportunity that I highly encourage people to go to, especially so I also met Jans that weren't in London, and that was really important for them to come to fall orientation because they got to meet not only the non-Jan students, but they got to meet the other Jans. So I have some friends that in London, so we met one of our friends and then she did the C semester. And then we were texting her over the semester. And then we were able to ask if she wanted to room with us in a quad. And so then that's more comfortable for her because she knows who like we know who she is, things like that. So it's a great way for people who aren't in London to meet other Jans as well. And it's just really fun. Like the first few weeks of school are kind of called Camp Hammy because everything's just like a summer camp. Everyone's really excited to be there. There's lots of fun traditions. And I did want to mention my grade. This is what we were talking about earlier, but my grade has a group chat that we still use that we came up with, the summer going into freshman year to all meet each other, and we still use it. And people will text like, hey, come to this theater production, come to this game. And we like to keep tabs on each other that way. So yeah.
That's really cool. That's really nice to hear. And actually, it's a great transition to my question for you, Thomas. Jacqueline talked about she had a mentor who, for orientation group, who was a Jan, and she got to see how he kind of transitioned, how he made friends on campus. And so I guess for you, Thomas, how did starting the semester in the spring impact your social life? Was it really easy or hard to kind of integrate yourself in the social scene? What was that experience like?
It was really scary. The first couple of days, I was really intimidated. I was in quarantine, so I couldn't really, there was a lot happening around me, but I couldn't partake in it. And I found that it was way easier than I was hyping it up to be. Everyone is super lovely. Being in Dunham is such a great opportunity for Jans. There's so much happening in that building. It is always busy. You're always running into new people. You're always meeting really interesting people in the hallways. So I would say it was scary, but once I actually got into it, I had such a lovely time. I was on the first floor of Dunham, which is abnormal for Jans, but I got to meet all of these students who had been there for a semester already, and they kind of showed me the ropes. It was really, really lovely.
Great, perfect. And that's actually a really great transition to my next question, to Tessa, because we always get questions like, how does housing work? Like, it's one of those things where they, because they're coming in a semester afterwards, it's like they get worried, like, am I going to have a home? Where will I live? Am I going to live far off campus? Like, well, everyone lives on campus because it's required, but it's like, where am I going to be living? So how does housing work for students, and when do they go through that process with you?
Yeah, so I work really closely with our Office of Residential Life, and I know they are very thoughtful about all housing placements, but certainly the housing placements for first year students on campus, and that includes our Jans. So the process the process looks like in the fall semester, while you are preparing to come to campus, just like I was talking about earlier, you would complete a new student checklist. And one of the elements of that is the housing questionnaire. And that questionnaire is going to ask you all sorts of things, right? It's going to ask you about your interests. It's going to ask you about your habits, things like, do you like to stay up late, or do you like to go to bed early? Do you like to have music playing in your room, or do you need it more quiet? How messy or not messy do you like your space to be, right? So it's going to ask you some of those kind of habits and living style questions, but also just general questions about the types of things you're interested in getting involved in, your academic interests, a whole bunch of stuff. So that housing questionnaire is used to match you with a roommate. But one thing that's really unique for JANs that no other first year student has the opportunity to do is that you can indicate a roommate preference. Like Jacqueline was talking about earlier, because our JANs have some of these pre-established relationships, they maybe have spent time together in the fall or got to know each other during orientation, they have the opportunity to say if they are interested in living with other JANs. And we don't allow our fall first year students to do that, actually. So when you come back to campus, certainly that housing questionnaire will be used to help find a good fit for you, certainly if you don't know anyone. And I think it actually usually works really well in the fall. Like if you haven't made a connection yet, it's going to be okay, and you're still going to find people to live with that are going to work well. But you could also indicate some interest too. Thomas was talking about Dunham. Dunham is our largest first year building on campus. So we also have first year housing, which means that all of our new students are clustered together in different parts of the campus community together, whether that's an entire building or maybe 2 floors of a building. We have 7 first year buildings on campus. I may need to, it might be 9 now actually. So we have 7 to 9. I think if it's 9, it's going to go back to 7 spaces on campus for first year students. And Dunham is usually where our January admission students end up, but certainly some of them end up in some of our other first year buildings. And one thing, when that happens, right, if a student ends up in a different building, it's usually either because they indicated a preference for that space, or it's just a really great fit for them. We have different academic communities on different sides of our campus, and sometimes different other interests and kind of vibes on different parts of campus. And so that information you provide in the housing questionnaire would be used to match you with both a building and a community, and also with a roommate if you haven't requested one already.
And I will say that as part of your team for the residential life office, they're absolutely amazing. They manually do it all. Like they are reading those very detailed forms and making sure that in the end that they are looking for fit, just as we are here at admission. So it's and so I definitely have seen the work that they do, and I know that students have been really happy with their roommates and where they're placed. And just kind of follow up with this, Tessa, you'll know it's not part of your traditional purview, but when do JANs get notified about classes? Like selecting their class? That's another worry that our students have. Like they worry about losing spots, or that they're not going to be able to get into a class.
Yeah, you don't lose spots. Certainly not a spot that would have been available to you as a first year student. You may not get a class that usually goes to seniors, of course, but you won't be behind at all in terms of access to courses with the rest of the first year class. So that same new student checklist is going to include something we call the advising tour. And that is kind of an online process where you get to explore academic options at Hamilton, things you're interested in, different courses you could take. And the final step of that is completing your course preferences for the spring semester. That list of course preferences is looked at by the registrar's office, and they will use that to create an initial schedule for you for the spring semester. The advising tour opens usually in October, late October, closes in mid-November. And so your information is collected before course registration opens up for everyone on campus, right? So they've got your information, and it's going right into play with everybody else's at the same time course registration happens. You're usually notified of your classes, I think by the end of December, middle to end of December. So you would know your tentative schedule. And I say tentative because you would still have the opportunity to make changes if you wanted to, right? So when you get that schedule, it does not mean it is set in stone, and those are the 4 classes you have to take when you come to campus. There are at least 2 opportunities to make changes. There may actually be 3 now. So there's some schedule change periods. And when you come to campus for orientation, you'll also have a chance to meet with your academic advisor, talk about your schedule and your interests. And if there are changes you want to make, your advisor can support support you in that. And you'd actually have access to the drop add period before the rest of the college does during orientation. So there's kind of ample opportunity to tailor your schedule and make it fit your needs.
And then this is for Jacqueline and Thomas. In addition to housing and academics, we always get the question of like, can you join clubs as a Jan? Like, when can you join clubs? Can you play a sport, or can you play club sport or intramural sport? How does that work? Or, can they, are there tryouts for auditions for a cappella or theater? Like, because you're coming in January, are you, is there anything impeding your ability to do any types of clubs on campus?
Yeah, so there's jams in basically every single organization on campus, I'm pretty sure. Varsity club, intramural sports, all different theater, music, a cappella groups, all different types of clubs. There is a club fair at the beginning of every semester. So that means the beginning of the spring semester, there's a club fair that it's open to everyone, which is nice. That makes you feel sort of, everyone else is like other freshmen are still signing up, figuring out what they want to join. As a junior last semester, I joined some clubs, so it's really easy to get involved. And one of the nice things about signing up for a club is you're not really held to a certain standard. You can be on the executive board, get really involved, or you can show up as often as you want. So I think I did a Jan takeover on the Jan Instagram last semester, and one of my favorite things was just walking around campus and being like, oh, there's a Jan, there's a Jan, there's a Jan, there's a Jan. Like, I didn't realize it until I was actually doing the takeover, and I was like, oh, that would be nice if I like pointed out everyone on campus. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're in every single like activity, building, major, whatever. So it is really easy to get involved. And most students, during the fall semester, the freshman students in the fall semester are getting adjusted, and they're not fully involved in the things that they want to be involved in yet too. So you're not behind in any way either.
Great, perfect, thank you. And Thomas, how did you transition socially?
That was covered pretty much perfectly, but actually a couple of my friends who had been here the semester before and I joined clubs together because they, as Jacqueline said, hadn't really like gotten assimilated yet. COVID kind of prevented them from joining other clubs. So I was able to share that experience with some students who were here in August. So every freshman is always just figuring out what they want to do. It's an equal opportunity for sure.
I love the fact that you and your friends joined all at the same time and you came in at different times. That's awesome to know that. And I think Jacqueline, you're bringing up a great point that, there's, traditional first years, they're still just trying to get acclimated. Like they may not be able to know what is available to them. They're just trying to settle in many ways. And so, it's great to know that there are going to be opportunities for you to join throughout pretty much most of the year and to get involved on campus. So it's great to hear. We have less than 2 minutes left. So I guess my one of my last questions for Jacqueline and Thomas is why did you choose Hamilton? I think one of the things, especially as an early decision for our students who were admitted as early decision candidates, we release them from the binding agreement. So we give them the opportunity to explore their other options. We've had some, as Nikki said, we've had some who've already committed, so they'll be joining us. But some are still kind of exploring. They're going to be able to look at some of their other schools and options. And I guess for you both, what in the end can, influenced your decision to come to Hamilton?
So I'll try to be quick.
Okay.
But I think what really stood out for me and what I always say on my tours is why I continue to choose Hamilton is definitely how supportive and passionate people are about you. Like people are really invested in the things they're doing, but they're also really invested in what you're doing. And it makes a great community. It makes great friendships. It makes great relationships with professors, administrators, everything. So not only are people passionate, but they're passionate about everyone else around them.
Great. Perfect. How about you, Thomas?
The community aspect was huge in my decision, and the open curriculum is amazing. Getting to study what you love when you want to, not having prerequisites or not having like really distinct requirements that you need to fulfill is unbelievable. And I can't say enough great things about Hamilton. I definitely made the right choice.
Great, thank you. Do you know what? I'm totally doing a lightning round couple questions because I want Tessa and Nikki to join in this too. So I'm going to just ask two of them. So I appreciate you rolling with this. So Nikki, favorite place on campus?
Oh, I have too many to choose just one.
You got one. You got
But if
one.
I have to choose just one, it would be Welland.
Okay, great. Tessa, favorite place on campus?
Place. I mean, this is a little cliche maybe, but I love the Glen. Actually, I really like the Peony Garden, which is next to the Glen. So we have wonderful outdoor spaces on campus.
Jacqueline, favorite place on campus?
Third floor library, third floor chapel.
Oh, okay. Third floor chapel.
The great study space.
And it's open now, right? After the construction, it's open? Great.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thomas, favorite place on campus?
KG Atrium. You can be very productive and you get to see all of your friends. It's super lovely.
And then my last lightning round question for you all is, so let's start with Tessa. Favorite tradition at Hamilton?
Oh, I mean, I'm gonna have to be so biased, right? I really, there's so many. I really like matriculation, which happens during orientation, which is why I indicate my bias. But we have these big, huge, thick, fancy looking college register books, and students come in during both August and January orientation, and they get an opportunity to chat with the president and the deans in person in most cases, or we did a hybrid over Zoom, but still it's a direct chat with the president and deans, and sign these big books that get pulled back out at all the reunions. So you can come back to Hamilton in 25 years and see where you signed on your first or second day on campus. So
Nikki, favorite tradition?
Graduation canes. I love that every Hamilton alum has a graduation cane. I love what the cane represents, that it's a replica of the cane from the Alexander Hamilton statue. I love that it represents all the wisdom that we are going to carry with us, that we got from our Hamilton experience, that will continue with us as we get older. It's something I think that brings the alumni community together because everyone has a cane, and it's truly one of my greatest treasures from my Hamilton experience.
Great. Thomas.
Class and Charter Day. Last year, Quinn 92 is my favorite artist. I have several posters of him up on my wall, and he came to perform because of COVID. So he performed over Zoom, but it was really excellent, and it's a really great tradition.
Great, perfect. And Jacqueline, favorite tradition?
Entering campus for orientation as a freshman, when all the orientation leaders are on the road screaming, holding signs, dressed in crazy costumes. Yeah, it's pretty fun.
that's a good one. I should have said
It is a good one. It is, especially when you're someone who is not a first-year student. You're driving up the hill and everyone's just cheering you on while you drive onto campus. It definitely puts a smile on my face. But and that's all the time we have tonight. But I want to extend my thanks to all of you for joining us, and especially to my panelists today. My hope is that you learned more about our JAN community, and that you learned more about what makes our JAN community unique, and some of the great opportunities and resources available to our students on campus. As you know, as Nikki said, we're in the process of reviewing our regular decision applicants. So the rest of the JAN cohort will just be admitted in the next couple of weeks. So definitely we'll be holding more virtual events throughout the spring. And so we hope that you'll take opportunities to learn more about us as you make your decision. And definitely for those who've already made their decision, we'll definitely be in touch with you as well. But thank you so much for being in touch. This will be available to you. We have recorded it. We will make it available to you all. So just in case you may have missed something or you want to learn more about it, and definitely visit our website, keep in touch. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. But congratulations. We hope to see you on campus, and have a great night. Thank you.